Sophie Harper hit the dirt screaming. The wooden bucket cracked clean in half on the rocks, and the last drop of water her dying mama had on this earth poured out into the Montana dust. She dropped to her knees and clawed at the wet ground with her bare hands, sobbing without sound, scraping mud against her chest like she could carry it home. "Mama," she whispered. "Mama, please don't die." She didn't hear the rider coming up the road behind her. She didn't see his hand drop toward his gun. Before this story goes any further, if you believe a child should never have to carry water alone for a dying mother, tap that subscribe button and follow this channel right now. Stay with me all the way to the end, because what that cowboy does next will break your heart twice over. And tell me in the comments what city you're watching from tonight. I want to see how far Sophie's story has traveled. Now let me take you back to that road in Montana, the spring of 1879, where a 7-year-old girl is about to meet the man who will change her life forever. The horse stopped 20 paces back. The rider didn't speak. Sophie kept clawing. Her fingers were raw, and the little nails were torn down to the quick, but she didn't feel any of it. She was scooping wet earth into her dress, into the broken half of the bucket, into her cupped palms. "Mama's waitin'," she choked out. "Mama's waitin'." The rider swung down. The leather of his saddle creaked. His boots hit the road soft. "Little miss." Sophie didn't turn. "Little miss, that water's gone." Her shoulders went rigid. She did not look up. "You don't know my mama," she said. "No, ma'am, I don't." "Then you don't say it's gone." The cowboy stood very still. He let his hand drift away from his hip and let it hang at his side. "My name's Daniel," he said. "Daniel Carter. I ain't going to come no closer, less you say." Sophie finally turned her face up. Her cheeks were streaked black, and her lower lip was trembling so hard she could barely get the words out. "You stay right where you are, mister." "Yes, ma'am." "My mama said don't talk to no men." "Your mama's a smart woman." "My mama is sick." The cowboy's jaw moved a little. He took his hat off slow and held it against his chest. "How sick, little miss?" Sophie's mouth pulled. She didn't answer. She turned back to the dirt and kept scraping. The wet patch was already drying. She gathered a fistful of dark mud and squeezed it, and one drop fell into the cracked half of the bucket, and she watched that drop like it was the last star in heaven. "Sweetheart," Daniel said, very quiet. "Sweetheart, you ain't gonna get her water out of that road." "I have to." "I know you have to." "I have to." "Listen to me now." She didn't. "Little miss, listen." He went down on one knee. He didn't move closer. He just lowered himself so he was below her, the way a man kneels at a grave. He set his hat on his thigh. "I got water," he said. Sophie's hand stopped. "I got a canteen on my saddle. It's full. It's clean. I filled it at the creek 'fore sunup." "You're lying." "No, ma'am." "Strangers lie." "Some do." "My mama said all of 'em do." "Some do," he said again. "Some don't." She turned her head and looked at him. Just a half look sideways with her chin tucked. "Why would you give me your water?" He swallowed. "'Cause I had a little girl once," he said. Sophie did not move. "I had a little girl about your age," he said. "And there was a day she was thirsty, and I wasn't there to bring it to her. And I have rode a long way thinking on that, miss, a real long way." "Where is she now?" He did not answer. Sophie watched his face. Whatever she saw there made her stand up. She wiped her hands down her dress, and the mud smeared in long streaks. She stayed where she was. "You step back, mister." "Yes, ma'am." "All the way back to your horse." "Yes, ma'am." He stood and walked backward. 5 paces, 6. He kept his hands open at his sides. "Now you take that canteen off and put it in the road," she said. "And you step back again." "Yes, ma'am." He unbuckled the strap. He set the canteen down in the dust. He walked back another 6 paces and stopped beside the horse. The horse blew air through its nose and stamped once. Sophie crept forward. Her bare feet were so small they barely made prints. She stopped over the canteen and stared down at it like it was a snake. "It's got a stopper," Daniel said. You twist it counterclockwise. I know how a stopper works. Yes, ma'am. She knelt. She picked it up with both hands. It was heavier than the bucket had been. Her arm shook a little. This is for my mama, she said. Not me. Yes, ma'am. I don't drink the stranger's water. You can drink it, miss. I'd want you to. No. She hugged the canteen to her chest. Her dirty cheek pressed against the metal. What's your mama's name, miss? Sarah. Sarah Harper. Sophie froze. How'd you know my last name? There was a man at the trading post, miss. He said the Harper widow was sick out by the creek bend. He said it like it was funny. Sophie's eyes filled. He said it like it was funny. Yes, ma'am. He did. What man? Skinny fella, black coat, pocket watch on a chain. The girl's face changed. Something hardened in it that did not belong on a 7-year-old. That's Mr. Crane, she whispered. Crane. He works for Mr. Vance. Vance. Jeremiah Vance, she said. He owns most everything. Daniel didn't say anything for a long time. Little miss, he said finally, what's a man like that laughing about your mama for? Because he's gonna take our land. The horse shifted again. Daniel did not move. You go on home, sweetheart, he said. You take that water to your mama. You don't tell her about me. You don't tell nobody about me. Why? Because some folks ain't supposed to be remembered. Are you a bad man? I've been a bad man, miss. Are you bad now? He looked at her a long moment. I reckon I'm trying not to be. Sophie's grip tightened on the canteen. I'll bring it back, she said. Keep it. No, sir, I'll bring it back. Little miss, I keep my word, she said, her voice shaking. And I'll bring it back, tomorrow, at the same place, I promise. All right. You promise too. Ma'am. You promise you'll be here. He stood very still. I promise. She turned and walked. Her legs were so thin under the muddy hem of her dress, and the canteen was so heavy that she had to stop twice to shift it from one hip to the other. She did not look back. Daniel watched her until she was a small shape at the bend in the road. Then he watched her after that. Then he got back on the horse and did not move for a long time. The cabin was a square of gray boards leaning into the hillside. The door dragged on the sill. Sophie pushed it open with her shoulder because her arms were full. Mama. The bed in the corner was a heap of blankets and one thin shape under them. Mama, I got it. The shape moved. A hand came out from under the blanket. The hand was bone and skin, and that was about all. Sophie. Mama, look. I got water, real water, cold water. Where did you... Sit up, Mama. Please, please sit up. Sarah Harper tried. She got her elbows under her. Her hair was stuck to her forehead with sweat. Her lips were cracked white. Sophie, where did this come from? The creek. Baby. It came from the creek, Mama. Sophie. Drink, Mama. Sophie Harper, you look at me. The little girl's chin trembled. It came from a man on the road. The mother's eyes closed. Oh, baby. He didn't touch me, Mama. He didn't come close. I made him put it on the ground. I made him walk away. Sophie. He had a kind face. Baby kind faces is what you watch out for. He said he had a little girl once. Sarah went still. What did you say? He said he had a little girl about my age and now he didn't have her no more. And he gave me his water for free. And he said I could keep it, but I told him I'd bring it back tomorrow 'cause I keep my word. Drink, Mama. Please drink. Sarah Harper looked at her daughter. She looked at the canteen. She looked at the small mud-streaked face. And then very slowly she put her trembling lips to the canteen and she drank. She drank for a long time. When she stopped, she was crying. Don't cry, Mama. Sophie, don't cry. Sophie, baby. You're gonna get better now. Come here. Sophie climbed onto the bed and curled up under her mother's arm. The blanket smelled like sickness and lavender soap, the way it had for 2 months now. "Sophie," Sarah whispered, "I need you to listen to me." "Yes, Mama?" "If something happens to me, don't say that. If something happens, baby, you go to Reverend Holcomb. You hear me? Not the marshal, not the storekeeper, the Reverend Holcomb. Mama, you're gonna be fine. You promise me, Sophie?" "I promise. You don't go to Mr. Vance for nothing. You don't speak to Mr. Crane for nothing. They are not safe men, Sophie." "I know, Mama." "Do you know?" "Mama, the man on the road said Mr. Crane was laughing about you being sick." Sarah's breath caught. "He said what?" "He said Mr. Crane said the Harper widow, and he said it like it was funny." The mother stared at the rafters of the cabin. "They want this land, Sophie." "I know. They want it bad." "I know, Mama, and there ain't no man coming to help us." Sophie thought about the cowboy on the road. She thought about how he had taken his hat off. She thought about the way he had said, "I've been a bad man, miss." She did not say anything. The knock came at sundown. 3 knocks, hard knocks, the kind of knocks a man does with the side of his fist. "Mrs. Harper?" Sarah's eyes flew open. "Sophie, get under the bed." "Mama, now, baby." Sophie slid off the bed and rolled under it. The floor was cold against her cheek. "Mrs. Harper, I know you're in there." The door rattled. "I ain't here to fight, ma'am. I'm here to talk." Sarah swung her legs to the floor. She had to grip the bedpost to stand. She wiped her face with the corner of her apron. She walked to the door like a woman walking to the gallows. She opened it 3 inches. "Mr. Crane?" "Mrs. Harper, evenin'?" "What do you want?" "Just a chat, ma'am." "Then chat from the porch." He laughed. It was a thin, dry laugh. "You're 3 months behind Mrs. Harper." "I know what I am." "Mr. Vance has been more than patient." "Mr. Vance can be patient 1 more month." "I'm afraid not, ma'am." "Tell him 1 more month." "Mrs. Harper, I'm afraid the situation has changed." "Changed how?" "Mr. Vance is prepared to take possession at the end of the week." Under the bed, Sophie pressed both hands over her mouth. "This is my husband's land, Mr. Crane." "Your husband is dead, ma'am." "This is my land." "Ma'am, this is my daughter's land." There was a pause. When Mr. Crane spoke again, his voice had gotten very soft and very pleasant. "Mrs. Harper, may I be plain with you?" "Be plain." "You are a sick woman. You have a small child. You have no money. You have no kin, and you have no neighbors who would lift a finger if Mr. Vance asked them to keep their hands at their sides. You also have a daughter, who, if you will forgive me, is going to need somewhere to live when you are no longer able to provide it. Mr. Vance is a generous man. He is prepared to offer you a fair price and arrangements for the child." "Arrangements?" "Yes, ma'am." "What arrangements?" "There are families in town who take in orphans. Mr. Vance has an arrangement with several." Sarah Harper laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who had been afraid for 60 straight days and had just discovered something colder than fear. "You get off my porch, Mr. Crane." "Mrs. Harper, you get off my porch." "Ma'am, you are being foolish. I will not sign anything. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not when I am dying. Not when I am dead. You tell Jeremiah Vance that this land is my daughter's, and he can come take it himself if he wants to look me in the eye while he does it." "Mrs. Harper, get off my porch." The door slammed. Sarah stood there with her hand against the wood and her whole body shaking. She slid down the door slow until she was sitting on the floor. "Sophie." "Mama." "Come out, baby." Sophie crawled out. Her face was white as flour. "Mama, what did he mean about arrangements?" "Nothing." "What did he mean?" "Nothing, baby." "Mama." "He meant nothing." "Mama, would they take me away?" Sarah Harper pulled her daughter against her and held her with arms that had no strength left in them at all. "They will not take you anywhere, Sophie Harper, not while I am breathing in this world, and not after." "Mama." You hear me, baby? Yes, Mama. Now you go to bed. Mama, I'm scared. I know, baby. Mama, can I sleep with you? Yes, baby. Mama. What? Tomorrow I gotta go take the canteen back. Her mother went very still. Sophie. I promised Mama. Sophie, listen. I gave my word. Sophie Harper, you are not going back to the road tomorrow. Mama, I have to. You will not. Mama. Hush now. Mama, please. Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about a man on a road who had said, I had a little girl once. She thought about a man who had walked backward from her child without being asked twice. She thought about Mr. Crane's pleasant voice saying arrangements. Sophie. Yes, Mama. What did he look like? The man on the road. Sophie thought. He was tall, Mama. He had black hair kinda long. He had a scar by his eye. He had real sad eyes, Mama. The saddest eyes I ever saw. What kind of horse? Dark. Almost black. What did he say his name was? Daniel Carter. Sarah Harper did not move for a long time. Mama. Yes, baby. Do you know him? No, baby. Mama, you got a funny face. I'm just tired, baby. Mama. What? Was Daddy a good man? The mother's voice broke a little. Your daddy was the best man God ever made. Did he keep his word? Always, baby. Then I'm gonna keep mine. Sarah Harper looked at the ceiling for a long time. Then she pulled her daughter closer. Tomorrow, she said, you take the canteen back. You take it, you give it back, you say thank you, and you come straight home. You do not go anywhere with him. You do not get on his horse. You do not let him follow you. Yes, Mama. And Sophie. Yes, Mama. You tell him your Mama said thank you. Yes, Mama. You tell him she said may God walk with him. Yes, Mama. And Sophie. Yes, Mama. You tell him there are men coming for this land. The little girl's eyes got wide. Why, Mama? Because I think God just sent us somebody, Sophie, and I am too tired to turn him away. Sophie woke before dawn. She did not light the lamp. She did not wake her mother. She washed her face in the basin and tied her hair back with the scrap of blue ribbon her father had given her 2 Christmases ago, the last Christmas before the cough took him. She picked up the canteen. She paused at the door. Mama, she whispered, I'll be back. The shape under the blanket did not stir. The sky was gray, and the road was empty, and the wind was cold enough that her breath came out in small white puffs. She walked the way she had walked yesterday and the day before, and every day for 2 months. Past the dead pine, past the place where the road bends, past the rocks where the bucket had broken. She reached the meeting place. It was empty. She set the canteen down in the dust where his canteen had been. She sat down beside it and folded her hands in her lap, the way her mother had taught her to sit in church. She waited. The sun came up. She waited. A meadowlark called somewhere out in the grass. She waited. And then, far down the road, a dark shape moved against the brightening sky. A man. On a horse. Coming. Sophie stood up. She did not run. She did not call out. She just stood very small in the middle of the road with the canteen at her feet and her hands twisted together in front of her dress, and she watched him come. He saw her. He raised one hand. She raised hers back. When he was close enough that she could see his face, he reined the horse in and swung down. He took his hat off. He held it against his chest. Mornin', little miss. Mornin', Mr. Carter. You came. I keep my word. Yes, ma'am, you do. She picked up the canteen and held it out to him with both hands. My mama said thank you. Your mama is welcome. My mama said, may God walk with you. Something moved in his face. Tell your mama, he said, that nobody has said that to me in a long time. Yes, sir. Tell her I am grateful." "Yes, sir." Sophie's hands began to shake. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, miss." "My mama said something else." "Yes, miss." "My mama said there are men comin' for our land." Daniel Carter went very still. His eyes did not leave her face. "When?" "End of the week." "How many?" "I don't know, sir." "Who?" "Mr. Vance, Mr. Crane, they're men." "How many men?" "I don't know, sir. I don't know how many." He put his hat back on. He did it slow. "Little miss." "Yes, sir." "Where do you live?" Sophie hesitated. "Sweetheart, I ain't askin' to hurt nobody." "I know. I just need to know where to come." "Past the dead pine, where the road bends. There's a creek. Our cabin is the gray one on the hill." "All right." "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "Are you gonna come?" He looked down at her. He looked down a long time. The wind moved his coat. The horse blew its nose and stamped. "Little Miss Bub," he said, "I been ridin' this country for 9 years trying to outrun what I done. And I ain't never once stopped to help nobody on account of I didn't reckon I had the right." "Yes, sir. But I am gonna stop now." "Yes, sir." "I am gonna stop right here." "Yes, sir." "You go on home to your mama. You tell her Daniel Carter is comin'. You tell her he ain't a good man, but he is a man who keeps his word. You tell her she don't owe him nothin', and she don't gotta let him in. But you tell her he is comin'." Sophie nodded. "Yes, sir." "Go on now." She turned. She started down the road. She got 10 paces and stopped. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, miss." "What was her name?" He looked at her across the cold road in the gray light. "My little girl?" "Yes, sir." He did not answer for a long moment. "Her name was Mary," he said. "Mary Carter. That's a pretty name." "Yes, miss, it was." Sophie nodded once very seriously, the way her mother nodded at the Reverend on Sundays. Then she turned and walked home. Daniel Carter stood in the road with the canteen in his hand and the wind moving the dust at his boots. And he watched her until she was past the bend. He stood there a long time after that, too. And when he finally turned to the horse, his hand was on the grip of his gun, and his face had a look on it that no man in that part of Montana had seen for a very, very long time. The little girl walked the road home with her empty hands swinging at her sides, and every few steps she looked back over her shoulder. The cowboy was still standing there, smaller now, then smaller, then gone behind the bend. Sophie ran the last quarter mile. She burst through the cabin door breathing hard. "Mama! Mama, he's comin'!" Sarah was sitting up. That alone stopped Sophie cold. "Mama, you're up." "I made myself get up." "Why?" "Because I'm not gonna lay in that bed when a stranger walks into my house, Sophie Harper." "He ain't a stranger no more, Mama." "He is to me." Sarah's hands were shaking on the edge of the table. Her face was the color of old paper, but her chin was set in a way Sophie had not seen since before her father died. "Tell me what he said." "He said his name is Daniel Carter, and he ain't a good man, but he is a man who keeps his word. He said you don't owe him nothin', and you don't gotta let him in, but he is comin'." "Sophie." "Yes, Mama." "Did he ask any questions about your daddy?" "No, Mama." "Did he ask about money?" "No, Mama." "Did he ask anything about this house, this land, what's inside of it?" "No, Mama. He only asked where we lived, so he could come." Sarah closed her eyes. "Mama, bring me the rifle, Sophie." "Mama, bring me the rifle, baby." Sophie went to the wall and lifted the long Henry rifle off the pegs. It was heavier than the canteen had been. She carried it across the room with both arms. Sarah took it and laid it across her knees, and her hands moved over the action the way a woman's hands move over a baby she has not held in a long time. "Mama, you know how to use that. Your daddy taught me. You never told me. I never had to." The mother looked up at her daughter. "Sophie, listen to me. When that man comes, I want you to stand behind me. I don't care what his face looks like. I don't care what your stomach tells you. You stand behind me." "Yes, Mama." And if I tell you to run for the cellar, you run. You don't look back. You don't ask me why. You run." "Yes, Mama." "Promise me." "I promise, Mama." Sarah took a long breath that rattled in her chest, and the rattle was bad. It was worse than yesterday. Sophie heard it and felt something cold open up behind her ribs. "Mama, you need to lay down." "I'll lay down when this is over." "Mama." "Hush, baby. Watch the road." Sophie went to the window. The window was a square of greased paper, and you could not see through it well, but you could see shapes. Sophie pressed her face against it. "Sophie." "Yes, Mama." "What did he look like when he said he was coming?" The little girl thought. "He looked like a man who already started Mama." Sarah Harper did not answer that. She just sat with the rifle across her knees and her face turned toward the door. Outside, the wind moved through the dry grass and made a sound like whispering. It was almost an hour before the hooves came. But they did not come from the direction of the road. They came from the back. Sophie heard it first. She turned her head. "Mama?" "What?" "There's a horse." "Where?" "Behind the house." Sarah's grip tightened on the rifle. "Get behind me, Sophie." "Mama." "Now." Sophie scrambled behind her mother's chair just as a soft knock came on the back wall. 3 knocks, low, almost polite. "Mrs. Harper." It was his voice. Sarah did not lower the rifle. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "You came up the back." "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" "Because, ma'am, I rode through town first, and there is a man in the saloon who paid 2 boys a quarter apiece to watch your road. So I came up the back." Sarah's face changed. "2 boys." "Yes, ma'am." "Whose boys?" "I didn't ask, ma'am. I just rode around." There was a silence. Sarah's hands were shaking on the rifle, and she could not make them stop. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "I have a rifle pointed at this wall." "Yes, ma'am. I figured you might." "I am not going to open the door." "No, ma'am, I am not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" "I am asking you to listen for 2 minutes. And when I am done, if you tell me to go, I will go." Sarah looked at her daughter behind the chair. Sophie was watching her with eyes like saucers. 2 minutes, Mr. Carter." "Thank you, ma'am." The voice on the other side of the wall was very quiet. "Mrs. Harper, I rode into town this morning to find out what kind of man Jeremiah Vance is. I asked at the livery. I asked at the post office. I asked at the saloon. The livery man wouldn't say his name. The postmaster looked at his shoes. The bartender told me to get out of his town before sundown." "That sounds about right." "Yes, ma'am. I reckon it does." "Go on." "There is a reverend in this town named Holcomb." Sarah's breath caught. "What about him?" "I went to see him." "You went to see Reverend Holcomb?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" "Because, ma'am, he was the only man in that town whose eyes did not slide off mine when I said your name." Sarah Harper put her hand over her mouth. "What did he tell you, Mr. Carter?" "He told me, ma'am, that your husband, Thomas Harper, was the finest man he ever buried. He told me your husband died of the same cough you got. He told me Mr. Vance offered to buy this land off Thomas 3 months 'fore he died, and Thomas told him no, and Mr. Vance has been waiting on this land ever since." "Yes." "He told me, ma'am, that there have been 4 widows in this county in the last 2 years who lost their land to Mr. Vance. He told me 3 of those widows are dead. He told me the 4th is in a poorhouse in Helena." Behind the chair, Sophie made a small sound. "Hush, baby," Sarah whispered. "He told me, ma'am, that the law in this town belongs to Jeremiah Vance. The marshal drinks his whiskey. The judge owes him money. The deputies are his cousins. He told me that there is no help coming for you from anywhere a man could ride to fetch it." "That is the truth." "Yes, ma'am, I know it is." "Then what are you doing on the backside of my house, Mr. Carter?" "I am asking you, ma'am, to let me sleep in your barn tonight." Sarah blinked. "My barn?" "Yes, ma'am." "Just the barn?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" Because, ma'am, I do not believe you and your daughter are going to live through the week, and I am not going to ride away from another woman and child I had a chance to help." The silence that followed that sentence was the longest silence in the cabin since Thomas Harper had stopped breathing. Sophie crept out from behind the chair. "Mama," she whispered. Sarah did not look at her. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "You said another." There was a pause on the other side of the wall. "Yes, ma'am, I did." "Whose woman and child?" "Mine, ma'am." Sarah closed her eyes. "What happened to them, Mr. Carter?" "Ma'am, I was off chasing a man who killed my brother. I rode out for 10 days. I came back, and there had been a fire, and there was nothing left of my house, and there was nothing left of my wife, and there was nothing left of my little girl Mary. The men who set that fire was looking for me on account of the man I was hunting was their kin. My wife and my Mary did not even know that man's name. Lord have mercy. Yes, ma'am." "How long ago?" 9 years, come September." "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "Set the rifle down." "Ma'am, you're carrying a rifle, ain't you?" There was a small pause. "Yes, ma'am." "Set it down on the ground, step back from it, then come around to the front door." "Yes, ma'am." "And Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "If you have lied to me about anything you just said, I want you to know I will know it the second I see your face. And I will put a bullet in you before you cross this threshold." "Yes, ma'am. I expect you will." Sarah put both hands flat on the table and pushed herself to her feet. Her legs almost did not hold her. She steadied herself and lifted the rifle and pointed it at the front door. "Sophie." "Yes, Mama." "Open the door, baby. Just a crack." Sophie went to the door, her small hand on the latch. She lifted it. The door swung in. Daniel Carter stood on the porch with his hat in his hand and his coat open so a woman could see he had no gun on his belt. He looked at Sarah Harper down the barrel of the Henry rifle, and he did not flinch, and he did not blink. "Ma'am," he said. Sarah stared at him. She stared a long time. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "You got the saddest eyes I ever did see on a man." "Yes, ma'am. I've been told." The rifle wavered. Sarah's whole body wavered. She caught the table with her free hand. "Sophie!" "Yes, Mama." "Help him bring his horse around to the barn." "Yes, Mama." "And Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "You will not sleep in the barn tonight." "Ma'am." "You will sleep on the porch, with that rifle of yours across your lap, because, sir, if those men come for my daughter in the dark, I want you between her and them." Daniel Carter swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." "Sophie, get him a blanket from the cedar chest." "Yes, Mama." "The wool one." "Yes, Mama." Sarah lowered the rifle. She lowered it slow, and then her legs went out from under her and she sat down hard on the floor, and the rifle clattered beside her, and Daniel Carter was across the room before Sophie could even cry out. He went down on one knee beside the dying woman, and he did not touch her. "Ma'am." "I'm fine." "Ma'am, you ain't fine." "Sophie, get the bed." "I got it, Mama, I got it." "Mr. Carter, do not pick me up." "No, ma'am." "I do not allow that." "No, ma'am." "Sophie, help me." The little girl put her tiny shoulder under her mother's arm and tried to lift her, and she could not, and she started to cry without sound the way she cried at the road, and Daniel Carter watched the two of them and did not move because the woman had told him not to. Then Sarah Harper said the words she had not said to a man in 3 years. "Help my daughter, Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." He lifted Sarah like she weighed nothing, because she did weigh almost nothing, and he carried her to the bed in 3 steps, and he laid her down, and he stepped back. Sarah's lips were blue at the corners. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "There is a tin in the cupboard. Brown tin. There is a powder in it." "Yes, ma'am." "Sophie knows how to mix it." "Yes, ma'am." "I do not have much of it left." He looked at her. "How much, ma'am?" 3 days. "Where do you get it?" "The Reverend has it sent up from Helena." How much does it cost? She closed her eyes. More than I have got, Mr. Carter. The cowboy was quiet. Mama, Sophie whispered. Mama, the powder. Mix it, baby. Sophie ran to the cupboard. Daniel watched the little girl stand on her toes and pull down the tin and shake it and look inside, and he watched her face go very white when she saw how little was left. He looked at Sarah Harper. Ma'am, I am going to ask you something, and I am going to ask you to say yes. What? I am going to ride to Helena tomorrow. Mr. Carter. It is 2 days there and 2 days back. I will leave at dawn. I will be back by Friday night. Mr. Carter, the men. The men, ma'am, are not going to come for the end of the week. Mr. Crane told you the end of the week. That gives me 4 days. And I will not let 4 days pass without you having your medicine. I cannot pay you, Mr. Carter. I did not ask to be paid, ma'am. Why are you doing this? He looked at the little girl at the cupboard. He looked at the dying woman in the bed. He looked at his own hands. Because, ma'am, my Mary was thirsty, and I was not there, and your Sophie was thirsty, and I was. Sarah Harper turned her face into the pillow, and she wept without making a sound the way a woman weeps when she has been holding something in for a very long time. Sophie brought the powder in a tin cup with water. Her hands shook so bad she spilled half of it down her dress, and Daniel Carter took the cup from her and held it steady while she stirred. And the little girl looked up at the cowboy, and the cowboy looked down at the little girl, and neither one of them said anything at all. Sarah drank the powder. She lay back. Her eyes closed. Sophie touched her mother's hand. Mama, I'm here, baby. Mama, are you gonna die? Not today, Sophie. You promise. I promise, baby. Sophie laid her head down on her mother's chest and listened to her breathe. Daniel Carter walked out onto the porch and shut the door behind him so the woman and the child could be alone. He stood there a long time. The sun was going down over Montana, and the long shadow of the cabin lay across the dust. He took his hat off. He held it against his chest. He looked up at the sky, and he tried to remember the last time he had prayed, and he could not, so he just stood there. And after a while his hand went to his hip where the gun was, and he checked the cylinder, and he counted the bullets, and he counted them again. 6. He stood with the cold metal against his palm, and thought about the 4 widows the Reverend had told him about. He thought about the marshal who drank Vance's whiskey. He thought about the deputies who were his cousins. He thought about how many men Vance could put on horses if he wanted to. More than 6. A long way, more than 6. He was still standing there when he heard the hoofbeats. They were coming from the road. 2 riders, maybe 3. Daniel Carter stepped off the porch and walked out into the dust and stood square in the middle of the path that led to the cabin, and he set his feet, and he let his coat fall back from his hip so the gun was visible. The riders came around the bend. There were 3 of them. One of them was a thin man in a black coat with a pocket watch on a chain. The thin man pulled his horse up 20 paces out and tilted his head and looked at Daniel Carter. The way a buzzard looks at a thing, it cannot quite tell, yet weather is dead. "Evenin'," said the thin man. "Evenin'," said Daniel. "Don't believe I know you." "No, sir. I don't believe you do." "This is the Harper place." "Yes, sir, it is." "You kin to the Harpers?" "No, sir." "Hired hand?" "No, sir." "Then I reckon you are trespassing friend." Daniel did not move. "I reckon I am not." The thin man smiled. He had a thin smile. It did not reach his eyes. "What's your name, friend?" "Daniel." "Daniel what?" "Daniel is enough." The 2 men behind the thin man shifted in their saddles. The thin man's smile got thinner. "Daniel," he said, "I'm gonna ride up to that cabin, and I'm gonna have a word with Mrs. Harper." "No, sir, you ain't." "I beg your pardon." "You ain't riding up to that cabin tonight." "And why is that?" "Because, sir, the lady of the house is unwell, and she has asked not to be disturbed, and I have agreed to make sure her wish is honored." "You have agreed?" "Yes, sir." "On whose authority, friend?" "On my own." The thin man looked at the two men behind him. He looked back at Daniel. "Daniel," he said very softly, "do you know who I work for?" "Jeremiah Vance." The thin man's eyebrows went up a quarter inch. "Well, well." "Yes, sir." "And knowing that you still aim to stand in my road?" "Yes, sir." "Friend, that is a very poor decision." "Yes, sir. I have made worse." The thin man laughed. It was the same laugh he had used at the cabin door yesterday, thin and dry. "Boys," he said over his shoulder, "this gentleman has had a long day. Why don't we help him to one side of the road?" The two men behind him began to dismount. Daniel Carter spoke without raising his voice. "The first boot that touches that dust," he said, "is the last boot that man is going to set down on this earth." The two men froze with one leg over the saddle. The thin man stopped smiling. "Daniel." "Yes, sir." "What did you say your last name was?" "I didn't." "Say it now." Daniel Carter looked at the three men in the road. He looked at the cabin behind him, where a sick woman and a small girl were lying in the dark. He looked at the sky. Then he said it. "Carter," he said. "Daniel Carter." The thin man's face went the color of bone. The two men behind him stopped moving entirely. One of them did not even put his foot back in the stirrup. He just stood there with one boot in the dust and the other in the air like a man who had forgotten how to walk. "Carter," whispered the thin man. "Yes, sir." "Out of Abilene." "Yes, sir." "They told me you was dead." "They was wrong." The thin man's hand was shaking on the reins. He could not hide it. "Mr. Carter," he said, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding." "Yes, sir. I believe there has." "We will be riding back to town." "Yes, sir." "And we will be tellin' Mr. Vance." "You will be tellin' Mr. Vance." Daniel Carter said that the Harper land belongs to the Harpers, and the Harper widow belongs to herself, and the Harper child belongs to her mother, and anyone who comes up this road again is going to meet me before they meet them. "Yes, sir, Mr. Carter." "Good night, gentlemen." The thin man wheeled his horse so fast he nearly threw himself off it. The two other men scrambled back into their saddles. They rode hard. They rode like men who had seen a ghost. Daniel Carter stood in the road until the dust they had kicked up settled back down. Then he walked slow back to the porch. He sat down on the top step. He laid the rifle across his knees. He put his hat beside him. Inside the cabin behind him, he could hear the small sound of a little girl crying into her mother's chest, and a sick woman whispering, "Hush now, hush, baby. He is still here. He is still here." Daniel Carter looked out at the road, and the cooling dust, and the long Montana dusk, and his hand on the rifle was steady, and his face was the face of a man who had just remembered who he used to be, and was not sure yet whether to grieve it or thank God for it. Far off a coyote called. He thumbed back the hammer of the Henry, and he settled in to wait for the dark. The dark came down hard over the Harper place, and Daniel Carter did not move from the top step. He listened. He listened to a coyote calling out past the creek. He listened to the wind moving the dry grass. He listened mostly to the small sounds inside the cabin behind him, where a sick woman was whispering a child to sleep. After a while, the whispering stopped. After a while, the door opened behind him. "Mr. Carter?" "Ma'am?" "You ought to come inside." "No, ma'am." "There is coffee." "I will keep watch from out here, ma'am, if it is all the same." Sarah Harper steadied herself against the door frame. Her breath was a thin rattle. She looked out at the road. "They came back." "Yes, ma'am." "How many?" "3. Crane." "Yes, ma'am." "Crane." She closed her eyes. "What did you say to him?" "I told him my last name." "And?" "And he turned his horse around, ma'am, and he rode back to town faster than he came up." Sarah Harper opened her eyes and looked down at the man on her step. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "Who are you?" "Ma'am, I am the man on your porch." "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "Crane is not a man who scares." "No, ma'am. He is not. And he scared tonight. Yes, ma'am. He did. Why? Daniel Carter did not answer for a long time. His hands rested on the rifle. The wind moved his coat. Ma'am, he said, there was a stretch of years I was not the man I am now. What kind of man was you? I was the kind of man, ma'am, that mothers told their children about to make 'em mind. Sarah Harper sat down. She had to. Her legs would not hold her. Lord. Yes, ma'am. How many men, Mr. Carter? Ma'am, I do not count. Lord have mercy. Yes, ma'am. And Crane knew that name. Crane knew that name, ma'am, the way a rat knows a barn cat. Sarah was quiet. Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. You said you were trying not to be a bad man no more. Yes, ma'am. Then why did you tell him your name? He looked up at the dark sky. Because, ma'am, your daughter was inside. Sarah Harper covered her face with her hands. Mr. Carter, you cannot ride to Helena. Ma'am. You cannot leave us. Ma'am, the powder. Mr. Carter, that man rode to town to tell Jeremiah Vance you are alive and standing on this porch, and Jeremiah Vance will not wait until the end of the week now. Jeremiah Vance will come tomorrow, and he will come with every man he has got because he is not going to let you ride out of Montana on your own legs. Daniel Carter sat with that. You are right, ma'am. Yes, sir, I am. Then I will not ride to Helena. You will not. And the powder will run out, Mr. Carter, in 3 days, and I will run out with it, and there is no help for that. Ma'am, there is no help for that, Mr. Carter. He shut his mouth. For a long time the only sound was the wind and her breathing. Then she said very quiet, You are going to have to fight them tomorrow. Yes, ma'am. How many will he bring? Ma'am, I do not know. 6, 8, 10, maybe more. And you got 6 bullets. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. There is more shells in the cedar chest, under the wool blanket Sophie pulled out. There is a tin box. There is 40 rounds in it for the Henry, and there is a box of Colt cartridges that fit your gun. My husband bought them in Bozeman the spring before he died. He said a man never knew. Daniel Carter closed his eyes. Ma'am? Yes. Your husband was a good man. My husband was the best man God ever made, Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. And he would not want you to die for us. He would not get a vote in it, ma'am, with respect. She almost smiled. Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. Come inside. Take the cartridges. Then you can go back to your porch. Yes, ma'am. He stood. He was unsteady on his feet, and he had not noticed until that moment that he was. The woman went in first. He followed. The little girl was asleep on the bed with her thumb in her mouth. Sophie, he whispered. She sleeps hard, Sarah said. She has not had a man in this house in 3 years, Mr. Carter. I think she sleeps because she finally feels like she does not have to listen for the door. Ma'am? Yes. I will not let nothing happen to her. Sarah Harper looked at him in the lamplight, and her eyes filled. Mr. Carter, you have already done more for that child today than the whole town of Drywell has done in 2 years. Yes, ma'am. Get the cartridges. He got the cartridges. He filled his coat pockets. He went back out to the porch. He did not sleep that night. He sat on the top step with the rifle across his knees and the Colt loose in the holster, and he watched the road, and he watched the stars wheel slow across the Montana sky, and he thought about a girl named Mary, who would have been 16 years old this fall. Dawn came gray. The hoofbeats came with it. He heard them before he saw them, a long way off, coming hard. Not 3 horses this time. Many. He stood up. He stretched his back once. He walked to the door of the cabin and rapped twice with his knuckle. Ma'am? I hear them. Yes, ma'am. How many? I cannot tell yet. Sophie. I am up, Mama. Cellar baby. Mama no. Sophie Harper. You get in that cellar this minute. Mama, I want to stay with you. Sophie. Mama. Baby, listen to your mother. Inside the cabin, Daniel heard the small sound of a child crying and a mother hushing her. He heard the cellar door creak open. He heard it shut. He heard a board thrown across it. The hoofbeats were closer now. He could count them. 11 horses. He stepped down off the porch into the dust. He walked out maybe 30 paces and stopped square in the middle of the road. He set his feet. He let his coat fall back. He waited. They came around the bend at a gallop and pulled up hard when they saw him. 11 men, 11 horses, 11 rifles. At the head of them rode a big man on a gray stallion. The big man wore a long black coat and a flat-brim hat, and his beard was streaked with iron, and his eyes were the color of pond water. Behind him, on a smaller horse, sat Crane. The big man held up a gloved hand and the 11 horses stopped. For a long moment, no one spoke. Daniel Carter. "Mr. Vance, you are a hard man to kill." "So I have been told." Jeremiah Vance smiled. He had good teeth. He took care of them. "Mr. Carter, Mr. Crane has been telling me a story all night. He says you are standing between me and a piece of land that I have paid good faith money on for 3 years. He says you are doing it for a widow who cannot pay her mortgage and a child who has got no daddy. Is that the story, Mr. Carter?" "That is the story, Mr. Vance." "Why?" "Because, sir, that is what a man does." Vance laughed. The men behind him laughed too. The laughter had no warmth in it. "Mr. Carter, you and me have been on opposite sides of more than one thing over the years." "Yes, sir." "You know my reputation." "Yes, sir." "I know yours." "Yes, sir." "You are alone, Mr. Carter." "I am, sir." "I have got 11 men." "I count 11, sir." "You have got 6 bullets in that Colt." "I have got more in my coat, Mr. Vance." "Not enough." "No, sir. Probably not." Vance leaned forward in his saddle. His pond-water eyes did not blink. "Then why are you standing there, Mr. Carter?" "Because, Mr. Vance, you are going to have to ride past me to get to that woman." "Yes." "And you are not going to ride past me, Mr. Vance." The big man laughed again, but the laugh had thinned. "Mr. Carter, I am not going to kill you today." "No, sir. No, sir. I am going to give you a chance to walk away." "That is generous, Mr. Vance. You walk away, you keep your life. The widow signs her papers. The child goes to a family I have arrangements with. Everybody breathes tomorrow, including you." "That is your offer." "That is my offer." "Mr. Vance." "Yes." "I am going to decline." The smile went off the big man's face. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, sir." "You have got family somewhere." "Not anymore, sir." "You have got a woman somewhere waiting?" "No, sir." "Then who is going to mourn you, Mr. Carter?" "Nobody, sir." "Then why?" Daniel Carter looked up at the 11 men on horseback, and he looked at Jeremiah Vance, and he said it plain. "Because Mr. Vance, my own little girl, burned to death waiting on me to come home. And I have rode for 9 years telling myself there was nothing I could do for her. And there ain't. But there is something I can do for that little girl in that cellar. And so help me God, I am gonna do it." The 11 men were very quiet. Vance straightened in his saddle. "You poor son of a bitch." "Yes, sir." "You really mean it?" "Yes, sir." "Boys," said Vance without looking back, "take him." A man on the right pulled his rifle up. He was the first man to die. Daniel Carter drew the Colt so fast that 2 of the men afterwards swore they did not see his hand move. The shot took the rifleman through the throat, and he went off the back of his horse like a sack of meal. The horses panicked. The road was suddenly full of plunging animals and shouting men, and Daniel Carter was moving before the second body hit the dirt. He went sideways low behind the rain barrel at the corner of the porch. A bullet split the wood above his head. He came up firing. A second man went down. A third. Vance was screaming, Spread out, you sons of—" Daniel Carter dropped behind the porch, thumbed the Colt open, dumped the empties fed in fresh from his pocket. His hands were not shaking. His hands had not shaken in 9 years. "Sophie," he whispered to no one. "Sophie, you stay in that cellar." He came up over the porch rail with the Henry rifle. A man at the edge of the yard had dismounted and was running for the side of the cabin. Daniel shot him in the back at 40 paces. The man pitched forward and did not move. "4," said Daniel Carter. Inside the cellar, Sophie had her hands clamped over her ears, but it was not enough, and her mother was holding her against her chest and rocking her, and the rocking did not stop the shots, and the shots did not stop, and Sophie was sobbing without sound the way she had sobbed at the broken bucket on the road. "Mama, I have got you, baby. Mama, he is gonna die. Hush, baby. Mama, he is the only one who came. I know, baby. Mama, please." Sarah Harper held her daughter, and her own face was a mask of grief and rage, and she did not say what she was thinking, which was, "Lord God, do not take the third one. Do not take the third one too. I have given you my husband, and I have given you my health. Do not take the man on the porch." Outside, the firing had thinned. Daniel Carter was behind the woodpile now. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead where a splinter had taken him. His left arm was wet inside the sleeve, and he did not have time to look. There were 6 men still mounted. He counted them between heartbeats. Crane was not one of them. Vance was. Vance had stayed in the saddle. Vance was screaming orders. Vance had not fired a single shot. Vance never did. Vance was a man who paid other men to kill. Daniel Carter laid the Henry rifle across the top of the woodpile, and he sighted on Jeremiah Vance, and he held his breath, and he started to squeeze. Then the cellar door behind the cabin slammed open. "Daniel!" He jerked. The shot went wide. It took the hat off Vance's head, but did not touch the man. "Daniel, behind you!" It was Sophie's voice. Daniel Carter spun. There was a man at the back corner of the cabin. The man Daniel had not seen go around. The man had a pistol, and the pistol was up, and the pistol was aimed at Daniel's chest from 12 feet. Daniel was not going to make it. He knew he was not going to make it. He saw the man's finger tighten on the trigger, and he thought, "Well, Mary, here I come, baby girl." Then the pistol fired. But the man with it crumpled forward and went face down in the dust, and behind him in the cellar doorway stood Sarah Harper in her nightdress, with the long Henry rifle in her hands, and the smoke rising out of the barrel. She had pulled herself up the cellar steps on her knees. She had fired through the open door. She had hit a man at 30 feet with arms that had barely been able to lift a teacup the day before. "Mama!" Sophie screamed. Daniel Carter found his voice. "Get down, ma'am! Get down!" But there was no need. The 5 remaining men were already wheeling their horses. They had seen the dying woman with the rifle. They had seen the gunman on the porch reload faster than any man among them could blink. They had counted their dead in the dust. 5 of them lying still. They had counted their living. 6, including their boss. And they had counted what waited for them if they pressed it. "Boss," one of them shouted, "Boss, we got to ride." "No, boss." "Goddamn you know." But the men were already going. 4 of them put spurs to their horses and were gone in a cloud of dust before Vance could finish his sentence. The 5th waited 2 seconds longer, and then went too. Jeremiah Vance was alone in the road on a gray stallion. Daniel Carter walked out from behind the woodpile. He walked slow. He had the Colt in his right hand. Vance looked down at him from the horse. The big man was breathing hard. His pond-water eyes were not flat anymore. They were bright, and they were full of something Daniel Carter had not seen in them 5 minutes ago. Fear. "Mr. Carter. Mr. Vance. Mr. Carter, I am unarmed." "You are not, sir. You have got a pistol on your hip." "I have not drawn it." "No, sir." "I have not drawn it the whole time." "No, sir." "You cannot shoot a man who has not drawn." "No, sir. I cannot." "Then, get off your horse, Mr. Vance." The big man hesitated. Daniel Carter cocked the Colt. "Get off your horse." Vance got off his horse. "Drop your gun belt. Vance dropped his gun belt. Step back from it. Vance stepped back. Daniel Carter kicked the gun belt under the porch. He did not look down when he did it. Mr. Vance. Yes, Mr. Carter. You are gonna walk back to Drywell. Mr. Carter, you are gonna walk back to Drywell, and you are gonna pack a bag, and you are gonna leave this county before the sun comes up tomorrow, and you are not gonna come back. Mr. Carter, I have property here. You have got dirt here, sir. There is a difference. I will go to the marshal. The marshal, Mr. Vance, is going to ride to this cabin tomorrow and find the bodies of 5 men in the road, and he is going to find a widow and a child who are unhurt, and he is going to have a choice. He can ride back to town and tell folks you got 11 men killed and ran for the hills, or he can ride back to town and tell folks you was killed too. Which do you reckon serves you better? Vance's mouth worked. Mr. Carter. Yes. You are letting me live. Yes, sir. Why? Daniel Carter looked at the big man for a long, long moment. Because, Mr. Vance, he said, my Mary would not want me to do otherwise. Jeremiah Vance closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had broken in his face. It was the kind of breaking that does not show right away, but will show later in mirrors, and in the small hours, and in the eyes of his own children. Walk, Mr. Vance. The big man turned. He walked. He walked away down the road that ran toward Drywell, and he did not look back, not even once. Daniel Carter stood in the dust with the Colt heavy in his hand. Behind him in the cellar doorway, Sarah Harper had dropped the rifle and slid down the doorframe to her knees, and Sophie was running across the yard barefoot in her nightdress toward the man in the road. Daniel! He turned. The little girl hit him so hard around the legs that he almost went down. Mr. Carter! Mr. Carter! Mr. Carter! Easy, miss. Mr. Carter, you are bleedin'. A little, miss. You are bleedin' a lot. Yes, miss. Don't die. No, miss. Don't die, please don't die. He went down on one knee and held the little girl with the arm that still worked. He looked over her shoulder at the woman in the cellar doorway, and the woman looked back at him, and for a moment neither one of them could speak. Then Sarah Harper said very soft across the yard, Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. Bring my daughter inside. Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. Bring yourself inside too. He stood up with the little girl in his good arm. She had her face buried in his shoulder, and she was not letting go. He walked toward the cabin where the dying woman was waiting on her knees in the doorway, and the sun was coming up over Montana, and the Harper place was quiet for the first time in a very long time. Behind him in the road 5 men lay still in the dust, and the iron smell of cordite hung in the cold morning air, and somewhere far off, a single coyote called, and was answered. He carried the little girl across the yard with his good arm, and his bad one, bleeding through the sleeve, and Sarah Harper was still on her knees in the doorway, with both hands flat on the cellar doorframe. Ma'am? I cannot stand up, Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. He set Sophie down on the step. He bent low. He got one arm under Sarah's knees and the other behind her back, and she did not protest this time, because she could not. Bed. Bed. He carried her inside. He carried her like a man who had carried a wife once a long time ago. He laid her down. He stepped back. Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. You are bleedin' on my floor. Yes, ma'am. I beg your pardon. Sit down. Ma'am, I should drag the bodies. Sit down, Mr. Carter, before you fall down. He sat down. Sophie was already at the basin. The little girl was pumping water into a bowl with both hands on the handle, and she was breathing fast, and she was saying, I got it, Mama. I got it over and over to herself like a prayer. Sophie, baby, bring it here. Yes, Mama. Mr. Carter, take off the coat. Ma'am. Take it off. He took it off. He could not get the left sleeve over his hand without help, and he tried for a second too long, and Sophie put down the bowl and came to him, and unbuttoned the cuff with her small fingers, as careful as if she was undoing a wedding glove. Thank you, miss. Don't talk. Yes, miss. The shirt underneath was red from the elbow down. Sarah Harper sat up against the headboard. Her face was gray, but her hands had stopped shaking. "Sophie, get the clean sheet from the chest and tear me 3 strips. 3 good ones, long ones. Then bring the brown bottle." "Yes, Mama." "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "This is gonna hurt some." "Ma'am, I have had worse." "I expect you have." She washed the blood off, and she found the wound, and when she found it, she went very still for a half-second. "Mr. Carter." "Ma'am?" "The bullet did not pass through." "No, ma'am." "No, sir." He swallowed. "You got a knife?" "Mr. Carter." "Ma'am, if it is in there, it has got to come out. I know how it goes. I have done it twice on myself. I cannot reach this one." Sarah Harper looked at her hands. Her hands were already shaking again. She closed them into fists. She opened them. "Sophie, baby." "Yes, Mama." "I need you to be brave for me right now." "Yes, Mama." "I need you to go in the kitchen drawer and bring me the small skinning knife with the bone handle. The one your daddy used." The little girl's face went white. "Mama, bring it, baby, now." Sophie went. She came back. She held it out to her mother with both hands the way she had held the canteen. Sarah took it. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "You're going to want something between your teeth." "Yes, ma'am." She handed him the strap of his own gun belt. He put it between his teeth. He bit down. His eyes did not leave hers. "On 3, Mr. Carter." He nodded. She did not say 1. She did not say 2. She went on her own count the way her husband Thomas had taught her on a calf with a deep cut 11 years ago in another life entirely. The cowboy made one sound, and it was not a scream, but it was close, and his whole body locked. The little girl had her hands clamped over her ears and her eyes shut so tight that tears squeezed out of the corners. Sarah dropped the bullet into the bowl. It rang against the tin. "Out," she said. She poured the brown bottle into the wound. Daniel Carter's face went white as plaster, and he bit through the leather strap, and a small, low growl came out of him that was not quite a word. She wrapped his arm with the sheet strips. She tied them off. She sat back. She was breathing like she had run a mile. "Mr. Carter." He spit out the strap. "Ma'am?" "You are stitched up rough." "Yes, ma'am, it is fine." "It is not fine, but it will hold." "Yes, ma'am." "Sophie." "Yes, Mama." "Get the man some water." "Yes, Mama." The little girl went to the canteen, the same canteen that had started the whole thing, and she filled a tin cup and she brought it to him with both hands. Daniel Carter took it. He looked at the girl over the rim of the cup, and the girl looked at him, and neither one of them said anything because they did not need to. He drank. "Sophie," her mother said very soft, "come up here, baby." The little girl climbed up on the bed and folded herself against her mother's side. "You shouted my name," Daniel said. The girl turned her face into her mother's shoulder. "Through the cellar door." She nodded against the cloth. "You saved my life, miss." She did not answer. "You hear me, Sophie Harper? You saved my life. Mama saved you." "Mama saved me second, miss. You saved me first." Sarah Harper put her hand on her daughter's hair. "Sophie." "Yes, Mama." "Look at the man, baby." Sophie lifted her face. "Yes, sir, Mr. Carter." "Thank you, miss." "You are welcome, sir." That was when they heard the second set of hoofbeats. Daniel Carter was on his feet before his good arm was halfway to the rifle. "Stay back, ma'am." "Mr. Carter, you cannot—" "Stay back." "Mr. Carter, you have got one arm." "I have got one arm and 6 bullets, ma'am, and that is enough." He went to the door. He pulled it open 3 inches. He looked. His shoulders dropped. "Ma'am?" "What?" "It is a buggy." "A buggy." "A black buggy, ma'am, with a white horse." Sarah Harper closed her eyes. "Lord be praised." "Ma'am." "It is the Reverend Mr. Carter. It is Reverend Holcomb." She tried to get out of the bed. Her legs did not let her. "Mr. Carter, will you bring him in?" "Yes, ma'am." He went out onto the porch. Reverend Ezekiel Holcomb was a thin old man with white hair and round spectacles, and a black coat that had been brushed 3,000 times. He pulled his buggy up at the edge of the yard. He did not get out at first. He sat looking at the 5 bodies in the road. He counted them. He took off his spectacles. He polished them. He put them back on. He climbed down. He walked across the yard with his hands folded behind him, like a man walking up a church aisle. He stopped at the porch. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, Reverend." "You would be Mr. Carter?" "Yes, sir." "I see you have been busy." "Yes, sir." The old man looked up at the cowboy. His eyes behind the round spectacles were not afraid, and they were not angry. They were the eyes of a man who had buried a great many people and was not surprised by anything at all anymore. "Is the widow alive?" "Yes, Reverend." "The child?" "Yes, sir." "You?" "For now, sir." "That is more than I hoped for, son." The old man came up the steps. Daniel held the door. The Reverend went inside, and his face changed when he saw Sarah Harper sitting up in the bed with the little girl beside her, and he crossed the cabin in 3 steps and took her hand in both of his. "Sarah." "Reverend." "My dear girl." "I am still here, Reverend." "I see you are. Mr. Carter is the reason." The old man turned. He looked at the cowboy in the doorway with the bandaged arm. "Yes," he said. "I rather thought he might be." "Reverend?" "Yes, child. Vance is alive." "I know Sarah." "You know. I passed him on the road. He was walking. He did not see me. He was crying." Sarah Harper put her hand over her mouth. "Crying?" "Yes, Sarah." "Jeremiah Vance was crying." "Yes." "On the road?" "On the road. Sarah walking like a man who has just lost his soul, which I expect he has." The Reverend turned back to Daniel. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, sir." "What did you say to that man?" "Sir, I told him my Mary would not want me to do otherwise than let him live." The old man went very still. "Mary?" "Yes, sir." "That was the name of your daughter?" "Yes, sir." "Mr. Carter, sit down." "Sir?" "Sit down, son. I have got something to tell you, and you are not going to take it standing." Daniel Carter sat. The Reverend took a breath. He let it out. He took another. "Mr. Carter, I rode out from Bozeman in the spring of '71, before I came to Drywell. I was a circuit preacher then. I rode through a town called Russell's Bend in the Dakota Territory." Daniel's face had gone the color of paper. "Reverend?" "I buried a woman and a little girl in Russell's Bend, son." "Reverend, I buried them under an oak tree on a hill behind a house that had burned to the ground. There was no headstone. There was no money for one. The neighbors had wrapped them in a clean sheet. The little girl was about so big." He held his hand out at the height of Sophie's head. Daniel Carter could not speak. "The neighbors said the husband was a hard man. They said he was off chasing the men who had killed his brother. They said when he came back and saw what the fire had taken from him, he rode out into the night, and they did not ever see him again." "Reverend?" "Yes, son." "You buried them?" "Yes, son. I read the words over them." Daniel Carter put his face in his hands. He did not make a sound. He did not need to. The Reverend put his thin old hand on the cowboy's shoulder very light, the way a man touches something that might break. "Son?" "Yes, sir." "There is an oak tree?" "Yes, sir." "It is still there?" "Yes, sir." "I can draw you the way." Daniel Carter nodded into his hands. The little girl on the bed slid off the mattress and walked across the cabin floor in her bare feet and stopped in front of the cowboy. She put her small hand on his knee. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, miss." "Don't cry." "No, miss. Mama says you can put it down now." He looked up. "What, miss? What you been carrying?" The cowboy looked at the little girl, and the little girl looked at the cowboy, and the room went very quiet. "Yes, miss," he said. I expect I can. The Reverend cleared his throat. Sarah. Yes, Reverend. I have brought something for you. Reverend. Hush, child. I have brought something for you, and you are not going to argue with me about it. He went out to the buggy. He came back with a leather satchel. He set it on the bed. He opened it. There were 6 brown tins inside. Sarah Harper stared. Reverend. 6 months child. Reverend, I cannot. It is paid for Sarah. Who? It is paid for child. Her eyes filled. Reverend, who paid? A man does not have to be named Sarah for his kindness to count. She looked at him. She looked at the tins. She looked back at him. Reverend Holcomb. Yes, child. You sold something. The old man did not answer. Reverend. Sarah. What did you sell? Child. Reverend Ezekiel Holcomb. What did you sell? The old preacher took off his spectacles and polished them again. His hands were not quite steady. My wife's wedding ring, Sarah. May she rest. She is not using it where she is. Sarah Harper turned her face into the pillow and wept. The Reverend let her weep. He sat on the edge of the bed and patted her hand the way a father pats a daughter, and he did not say anything because there was nothing to say. When she could speak again, she said, Reverend, I will pay you back. I swear before God. Sarah, you will not. I will. You will live, child. That is how you will pay me back. You will live, and you will raise that little girl, and you will be there at her wedding, and you will hold her babies on your knee. That is the only payment I will accept. She nodded into the pillow. Yes, Reverend. Now. The old man stood up. There is the matter of 5 bodies in the road. Daniel Carter had not moved. He still had his hand on Sophie's small one on his knee. Reverend. Yes, son. I will dig the holes. You will not, Mr. Carter. You have got 1 arm. I have brought 2 men with me. They are in the woods. They will dig the holes. They are men I trust. Sarah will not see the diggin', and the child will not see it either. By sundown this yard will look like nothing happened here. Reverend the Marshal. The Marshal, Mr. Carter, will not ride out here today. Sir. He left town this morning, Mr. Carter, before sunrise, with his wife, and his cousins, and 4 wagons, and every dollar Jeremiah Vance had in the bank that the Marshal could find a key to. Daniel Carter blinked. Sir? Yes, son. They robbed him. They liberated him, Mr. Carter, of resources he is no longer in a position to enjoy. Reverend? Yes, son. You knew. I had heard rumors, Mr. Carter. I am a man who hears things. The cowboy almost smiled. Reverend Holcomb. Yes, son. You are not the man I took you for. No, Mr. Carter. Few of us are. The little girl who had been listening to all of this, with both hands still on the cowboy's knee, looked up at the Reverend. Reverend? Yes, child. Is Mama going to be all right now? The old man bent down so his face was level with hers. Yes, Sophie. Your Mama is going to be all right now. For sure. For sure, child. The medicine will work. The men are gone. The land is yours. Mr. Vance is gone too. He is gone, child. For sure. He is walking, sweet girl. He will keep walking. He will not come back. Sophie thought about that for a long time. Then she said, Reverend. Yes, child. Mr. Carter is hurt. Yes, child. He is. Can he stay with us till he ain't hurt? The Reverend looked at Sarah on the bed. Sarah Harper lifted her head from the pillow. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. Mr. Carter? Yes, ma'am. You will stay with us till you are healed. Ma'am, I cannot impose. Mr. Carter, you have killed 5 men in my front yard this morning. You have already imposed. You will stay. He looked at her. He looked a long time. Yes, ma'am. And after Mr. Carter? Ma'am. She drew a long, shaky breath. After you are healed. I will not keep you here. I will not chain a man to a porch step. But I want you to know something. Yes, ma'am. This land is in my daughter's name. Her father saw to that before he died. Vance never could have taken it without forcing me to sign. And I was not gonna sign. So this land is hers. and there is a corner of it on the south end near the creek that has the best soil and the best shade, and a place a man could put a cabin. Ma'am, it is hers to give, and I expect if you wanted it, she would give it to you." Daniel Carter swallowed. "Ma'am, you think on it, Mr. Carter. You take your time." "Yes, ma'am." The Reverend cleared his throat softly. "I will be outside then, with my men. Mr. Carter, the diggin' will take some hours. Don't come out till I send word." "Yes, sir." "And Mr. Carter." "Yes, sir." The old preacher paused at the door. He turned. "Russell's Bend is 6 days' ride from here, north-northeast. The oak tree is on the second hill behind where the house was. There is a flat stone at the base of the tree. I put it there myself. It does not have any names on it, but the names are written, son, where it counts." "Yes, sir." "You ride there when you are ready, Mr. Carter, not before." "Yes, sir." The old man went out. The door closed soft behind him. For a long time the only sound in the cabin was Sarah Harper's breathing on the bed and the wind outside, and somewhere a long way off, the slow, steady sound of 2 shovels working in the cold Montana ground. Sophie climbed back up on the bed and curled against her mother. The little girl reached out one small hand across the blanket toward Daniel Carter, and the cowboy took it, and he held on, and he did not let go for a long time. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "What was your wife's name?" He did not have to think about it. "Elizabeth, ma'am. Elizabeth Ann." "Did you love her?" "Yes, ma'am, I did." "Did she love you?" "More than I deserved, ma'am." "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "That is what love is." He nodded. He could not speak. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "You go ride to that oak tree." "Yes, ma'am." "You take whatever time you need." "Yes, ma'am." "And then, sir, if you come back, there is 2 of us here who will be glad to see you." Outside, the shovels kept working. Inside, the cowboy held the little girl's hand, and the dying woman, who was no longer dying, watched the 2 of them with eyes that had not been at peace in a very long time, and were now. The shovels worked till sundown, and when the men were done, the road in front of the Harper place looked like a road again, and you would not have known what had happened on it that morning unless you knew where to look. Daniel Carter slept that night for the first time in 9 years. He slept on the porch with the rifle across his lap and the wool blanket over his shoulders, and he did not dream of fire, and he did not dream of his Mary. And when he woke up at the gray edge of dawn, he sat for a long time with his hands open on his knees, because he could not remember the last time he had not dreamed of fire. The cabin door opened behind him. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "You did not come inside." "No, ma'am." "Why?" "Habit, ma'am." "You can break that habit, Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." Sarah Harper sat down on the step beside him. She moved like a woman whose body was hers again, slow but hers. The medicine had done its work overnight. Her color was back. Her breath did not rattle. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." "You are leaving today." He looked at her. "Ma'am, Mr. Carter, I was a wife once. I know the look of a man who has somewhere he has got to ride." "Yes, ma'am." "It is the oak tree." "Yes, ma'am." "Then go." "Ma'am." "Today, Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." She handed him a folded paper. "What is this?" "It is the way the Reverend drew." "Ma'am, I cannot take this from you." "It is for you, Mr. Carter. He left it for you. He said you would try to leave without it, and I was to put it in your hand." He took the paper. He folded it small. He put it inside his coat against his chest. "How long, Mr. Carter?" "6 days there. 6 days back, ma'am. A few days at the tree." "2 weeks then." "Maybe 3. "All right, sir." "Ma'am." "Yes." "If I do not come back." "You will come back, Mr. Carter." "Ma'am, I am sayin' if." She turned her face to look at him. Her eyes in the gray light were very clear. "Mr. Carter, you promised that little girl on the road." "Yes, ma'am." "You said you would always come back." "Yes, ma'am." "You will come back." "Yes, ma'am." The cabin door creaked behind them. A small, sleepy voice. "Mama? Out here, baby?" Sophie came out in her nightdress with her hair tangled from the pillow. She saw Daniel's saddlebags on the porch. She saw his coat buttoned. She saw the rifle leaned against the post in a way it had not been leaned for 2 nights. She stopped in the doorway. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, miss." "You are leavin'?" "Yes, miss." "For a little while." The little girl's face crumpled. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, Sophie." "You promised." "Yes, miss. I am keepin' my promise." "You promised you would always come back." "Yes, miss." "That means you have to stay." "No, miss. That means I have to go, so I can come back." She did not understand. She was 7 years old. She did not understand. She ran to him and grabbed his coat with both small hands. "Don't go." "Sophie." "Don't go. Mr. Carter, please don't go." "Miss, you will not come back. They never come back. My daddy went away one morning, and he did not come back. He went up to the high pasture, and he did not come back. They brought him back Mr. Carter, but he was not him no more. Don't go up to no high pasture, Mr. Carter. Please don't, please." He went down on one knee and held her with the arm that worked. "Sophie Harper." "Yes, sir." "Look at me, miss." She looked. "I have got to go say goodbye to my Mary." The little girl went still. "Your Mary." "Yes, miss." "Your little girl." "Yes, miss." "In the ground." "Yes, miss." "I forgot, Mr. Carter. I forgot you had a Mary." "That is all right, miss." "I am sorry, Mr. Carter." "You don't be sorry, sweetheart." She put her small forehead against his shoulder. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, miss." "You tell her hello for me." He could not speak for a moment. "Yes, miss." "You tell her there is a girl in Montana who is glad you stopped on the road." "Yes, miss." "You tell her thank you." "What for, sweetheart?" "For Sharon." He turned his face into her tangled hair so she could not see him. "Yes, miss." "You promise you will come back?" "I promise, Sophie." "On your honor?" "On my honor." "On your Mary?" He swallowed hard. "On my Mary." The little girl let go. She stepped back into the doorway beside her mother. Daniel Carter stood up. He picked up the saddlebags. He picked up the rifle. He walked down the steps. He stopped at the bottom and turned. "Ma'am." "Yes, Mr. Carter." "There is one thing I have got to ask you, 'fore I ride." "Ask Mr. Carter." "That corner you said, by the creek, with the shade." "Yes." "Is it still on offer?" Sarah Harper put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Yes, Mr. Carter. It is still on offer." "Then I will be back." "Yes, sir." "For the corner." "Yes, sir." "And for the porch." "Yes, sir." "And for the 2 of you." She nodded once. "Yes, Mr. Carter. We will be here." He tipped his hat. He walked to the horse. He swung up in the saddle slow because of the arm. He turned the horse north. He looked back. The little girl had run out into the yard. She was waving with both arms. He raised his hand. He rode. The trip took 20 days because halfway there a winter storm came down out of Canada, and Daniel Carter spent 4 days in a sodbuster's barn waiting it out. The sodbuster was a German named Muller, and Muller had a wife and 3 boys, and they fed him without questions. And when he tried to pay, Muller waved him off and said, "Sometime you do for somebody else, ja." And Daniel Carter said, "Yes, sir. I will." He found the oak tree on the morning of the 11th day. The Reverend's drawing was good. The hill was steeper than he had remembered. The oak was bigger. The flat stone was still at the base of it, mossed over now, but there. He swung down off the horse. He took his hat off. He went up the hill on foot. He stood at the stone for a long, long time. He had thought all these years that if he ever came back here, he would have a great deal to say. He had rehearsed it in his head 1,000 times. But standing there, his rehearsed words went out of him, and what was left was very small. Lizzie. Just that. Lizzie. Mary. The wind moved the bare branches of the oak above him. "I am sorry I am late." He went down on his knees in the dead grass. "I am sorry I left." He put both hands flat on the cold stone. "I have been carrying you for 9 years. I've been riding from one town to the next, and I've been drinking too much, and I've been picking fights I should not have picked, and I've been telling myself I was punishing myself for what I done, but I was not. I was hiding. From you most of all, Lizzie, because I could not bear what was in your eyes when I rode out that morning. You knew, didn't you? You knew I was leaving too long. You said don't go, and I went anyway. Because I was a hard man, Lizzie. I was so hard." The wind moved the branches again. "There is a child, Lizzie, in Montana. Her name is Sophie, and she is about the age our Mary would be if Mary had been littler. She came running at me on a road with a busted bucket, and she was scraping the dirt for water for her mama and Lizzie. I tell you, when I saw that little girl on her knees in the dust, something in me broke that had been frozen since the day I rode back to that house and saw the chimney standing up alone in the ash. And the breaking hurt, Lizzie. It hurt like a bullet. But underneath there was something I had not felt in a long, long time." He swallowed. "Hope, Lizzie. There was hope." He stayed there a long time. When he finally stood up, his knees creaked, and the cold had got into his bandaged arm, and the sun had moved a quarter of the way across the sky. "Mary." He spoke to the stone where the little one was. "Mary, baby, Daddy has met another little girl who needs him. You would have liked her. She is brave like you was. She gave away her water, baby, just like you used to give away your bread to the dogs. Daddy is going to go take care of her now. Is that all right with you, sweetheart?" The wind made the bare branches knock together up high in the oak. He took it for a yes. He pulled out his knife. He carved 2 letters and a date into the bark of the tree low down where the moss did not grow. E.M. 1870. He put the knife away. He put his hand on the bark. "I will be back to see you both," he said. "But not for a long time, I hope. I have got a porch to sit on. I have got a corner by a creek to build on. I have got a woman who has waited a long time to be looked at like she matters, and I have got a little girl who needs to know that men come back." He kissed his fingertips. He pressed them to the stone. He pressed them to the bark. He walked down the hill to the horse. He turned south. He rode home. It was 22 days from the morning he left when the dust on the Drywell Road kicked up under a single horse coming fast. Sophie Harper saw him first. She was in the yard feeding the chickens. She saw the rider and she froze. Her hand was full of corn. The corn fell out of her hand into the dust. "Mama." Her voice was a whisper. "Mama." Then it was a scream. "Mama, Mama, Mama." Sarah Harper came out of the cabin so fast she nearly fell off the porch step. She had been making bread. Her hands were white with flour. She put one floured hand up to shade her eyes against the sun. The rider came around the bend. Daniel Carter was thinner than he had been. His coat had a tear in it at the shoulder. His beard was a little longer than it had been. He was riding the same dark horse. The little girl ran. She ran across the yard barefoot, and she did not stop, and she ran straight at the horse, and Daniel Carter threw himself off the saddle just in time to catch her. He went down on one knee in the dust, and the little girl hit him so hard that they both nearly went over, and he held her with both arms, now both arms working the bandaged one, stiff but whole. "Sophie." "You came back." "I came back." "You came back, you came back, you came back, you came back." "Yes, miss, I came back." "On your honor?" "On my honor." "On your Mary." He laughed. It was a small broken laugh, but it was a laugh, and Sarah Harper on the porch put both floured hands over her mouth and started to cry, because she had not heard a man laugh in her yard in 3 years. Daniel Carter stood up with the little girl in his arms. She did not weigh anything. She had her arms around his neck and her face against his collar. And she was babbling the way children do when they have been holding their words for too long. "Mr. Carter, the chickens hatched 4 of them, and one is yellow, and Mama says I can name him Daniel if you want, but I said maybe not because there is only one Daniel and it would be confusing. So I named him Biscuit, but the next one I will name after you if you want, and Reverend Holcomb came twice, and Mama is taking the powder every morning like clockwork, and she has been up walking to the creek all the way to the creek and back. And I have been learning to read out of the Bible, and I can read the part about the lilies of the field. Do you want me to read it to you? Sophie. Yes, sir. Take a breath, sweetheart. Yes, sir. She took a breath. Hi, Mr. Carter. Hi, miss. He carried her across the yard. Sarah Harper was at the porch step. She did not come off it. She was shaking too hard to take the step. Mr. Carter. Ma'am? You are thin. Yes, ma'am. You did not eat. Not enough, ma'am. There is bread in the oven. Yes, ma'am. He set Sophie down. He stood at the bottom of the step with his hat in his hand. Ma'am. Yes, Mr. Carter. I went to the tree. Yes. I said what I had to say. Yes. I came home. She closed her eyes. Mr. Carter? Yes, ma'am. You said home. Yes, ma'am. You meant it. Yes, ma'am. She came down the step then. She did not run because she could not run yet, but she came down, and she put her flower-white hand against his cheek, and the flower left a print on his beard, and neither one of them cared. Welcome home, Mr. Carter. Thank you, ma'am. Sarah. Ma'am? My name is Sarah, Mr. Carter. Daniel, ma'am. Daniel. Yes, Sarah. It was the first time either of them had used the other's first name. It sat in the air between them like a thing they had both been afraid to touch, and now had touched and was warm. Sophie tugged on his coat. Mr. Carter. Yes, sweetheart. Are you my daddy now? The yard went very quiet. Sarah Harper drew in a breath. Sophie. I am asking him, Mama. Daniel Carter went down on one knee in front of the little girl. He took both her small hands in his. Sophie Harper. Yes, sir. I cannot ever be your daddy. Your daddy was Thomas Harper, and your mama tells me he was the best man God ever made, and I would not stand in his place for anything. The little girl's face fell. But, miss. Yes, sir. If you would have me, I will be the man on your porch. I will be the man who teaches you to ride. I will be the man who walks you down a church aisle someday when you find a fellow worth your time. I will be the man who comes when you call. And if it is all right with you and your mama, you can call me whatever name pleases you. She thought about that. Mr. Carter. Yes, miss. Can I call you Pa? He did not answer right away. His throat was not working. Yes, miss, he finally said. You can call me Pa. Pa. Yes, sweetheart. Pa, you smell like horse. He laughed out loud. He could not help it. Sarah Harper laughed too, and put her hand over her mouth and laughed harder, and the laugh turned into something between a sob and a hallelujah. The cowboy stood up with the little girl on his hip and his good arm around the woman's waist, and the three of them walked up the steps of the cabin together, and the door closed behind them, and the yard was quiet except for the chickens. In the spring of 1881, on the south corner of the Harper land, by the creek where the cottonwoods grew, Daniel Carter raised a small house. He raised it with his own hands, and with the help of two of Reverend Holcomb's men, and with Sophie Harper handing him nails one at a time, as if each nail was a precious thing. In the summer of that year, Reverend Ezekiel Holcomb stood on the porch of the Harper cabin and married Daniel Carter to Sarah Harper, and Sophie was the witness. And there were 12 people present, and 3 of them were Muller and his wife and their oldest boy, who had ridden in from the Dakotas because Daniel had written them a letter and asked them to come, and Muller had said, "Ja, of course, you crazy son of a bitch, of course we come." Sarah Harper. Carter lived another 41 years. She held Sophie's babies on her knee. She held them, and she rocked them, and she sang to them in a voice that grew quieter year by year, but never stopped. Sophie Harper. Carter married a young rancher named Eli Mueller in the fall of 1893. He was the second of Muller's 3 boys. He had ridden down from the Dakotas every summer since the wedding, and he had been in love with Sophie since he was 13 years old, and Sophie had known it the whole time and had waited him out till she was good and ready. They had 4 children. The oldest was a daughter. They named her Mary. Daniel Carter lived to be 67 years old. He died in his bed in the house he had built by the creek with Sarah's hand in his, and Sophie at the foot of the bed with her own children gathered around her. He did not say much at the end. He had said most of what he had to say in the years between. The last thing he said, the very last, was Lizzie. Mary. I am bringing some folks home with me. Sarah outlived him by 8 years. When she died, she was buried beside him on a hill behind the small house by the creek under a young oak tree that Daniel Carter had planted with his own 2 hands the year after they were married, from an acorn he had picked up from the ground at a flat stone in the Dakota Territory, and carried home in the inner pocket of his coat. The flat stone in the Dakota Territory still has no names on it, but the names are written where it counts. And on a road in Montana in the spring of 1879, a little girl on her knees in the dust scraped at the wet earth for her dying mother, and a stranger on a dark horse stopped and stepped down and took off his hat and changed the course of 3 lives, and one of them was his own. That is the story of Sophie Harper and her mother Sarah and the cowboy Daniel Carter. That is what a promise is. That is what coming home looks like. That is the end.